Hi, everybody. I am Haley Mitchell Haugen. I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And tonight we are here to celebrate the debut release of this wonderful chapbook as we cover ourselves with light from Sandra Rivers-Gill. And Sandra will be joined by some open mic readers from our Sheila-Na-Gig Online Fall 2023 issue. A little bit about Sandra before I let her take it away. Sandra Rivers-Gill is a teaching artist. Her poetry is informed by family, community, and injustices, appearing in print journals, online, and in anthologies, while garnering numerous awards, including a nomination for Best of the Net. She's the editor of Dopeless Hope Beans, a book of poetry written by women in recovery. As We Cover Ourselves with Light is her first poetry collection. She resides in Toledo, Ohio with her devoted husband, where she is a writer and caregiver, prayer, scrapbook maker, poetry shopper, and when time allows, a performer in film and commercials. Welcome, Sandra. So wonderful to have you here and to
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Haley. I am really excited to be here today. I am celebrating my book today, and I am so very excited. And thank you for embracing my unique voice and publishing my debut chapbook as we cover ourselves with light. And to the readers who will follow me, thank you for your work, and I look forward to listening to you as well. So my book is about family, of course, the nuances of family and experiences, but also about love and loss and faith and acceptance, and about that which had been packed away like memory and brought into the light. So it's told through memory and my voice either as a child or as an adult also. So I've had 3 readings this is my 3rd reading this week. I had my my live debut reading on Sunday here in Toledo. And I had another reading with the group, the reading series group, Mingle with the Flamingos. I'm a member of the Poets Against Racism and Hate. So I read on Tuesday, and that was really good too. And so this is my 3rd reading. So on Tuesday, I chose to glean some of the poems from my book that were more geared towards social justice. And so today, I'm just going to concentrate on some, family, some of the poems that I didn't read before. So I'll start with a few. I'll just start. Okay. So this poem is entitled Family Tree. We learn to rise, place our distinctive sound on the bough of our song. Our name rustles, a legacy we leave behind, what feeds our soul, though we may break, we emerge deeply rooted in resilience. It's a short little poem. The Quilt Maker. And I have to say, this is about my mom. She makes so many different quilts for everyone else. And so this is kind of a tribute to that. The Quilt Maker holds the precision of skilled intention, unbroken. She threads our narrative. It is the grace and sacrifice that gives comfort, a vision of what she sows because our prayers cut like shears. She sews them as sewing instruments. The eye is a long needle, sharp and long. The intricacy of her fine hand work, home is where edges are salvaged, eases us into shapes of steadfast faith. It is the heat that presses open our minds, gives texture to our embroidered roots. To darn the most difficult fabric is to unify our tough skin, pulling endurance from biased places. She stretches us beyond its cotton presence. The use of a thimble is a lost art form, a safeguard from every human notion. She eagerly gives insight to that which we make into moments as we cover ourselves with her light. Thank you. This one is called Uncovered. She found a secret yawning in the closet. its wings flapping in the ceiling of raptors bearing his shiny chicks. They have never denied a looker. So many spines pressed into his hands, dog-eared to return to later. Sheep raised a pitched roof, made her aria known. The ring of her mezzo-soprano packed up the shit of feathered ambitions and dateless antiquity, shooed the flighty birds into the light. I think that poem is fairly self-explanatory. At least I hope so. Okay, so this poem is about my brother, and he lives in Germany, and he's been there for a little over 40 years. You know, he went into the service as a teenager and came, and he's still there with his family and grandchildren. So this is for him, for Randy. Crunching numbers. When were we ever not counting? It's 1,000 miles, 10 hours if flying Lufthansa, the back and forth of time zones. We anticipate the familiar soil of reunions. Between us, there are 19 months. We raise our flags like foreign voices, hold conversations of countless journeys. There are 42 years to be translated, to remember the gulf of who we were. We cannot talk about perceived distances until we calculate what is missing. Thank you. Okay. This next poem has an epigraph for George Floyd. The title is Danju, the pear. I had forgotten its coolness I carry from icebox to counter slab. A pear's taste is a hot commodity, crisp and sweet. Its body bears a certified label, the inspector's choice. Its unbroken skin sits silent on my countertop. The greenish gold of its silhouette does not wobble or collapse like a cracked egg. Funny how present tense can worm its way into a memory. When I was a young girl, the white woman next door grew pear trees, littered the ground with their fruit. I have forgotten. By summer's end, she donned a straw hat, climbed the ladder to her constellation of crops, shared them with my brother and me. The pears sat in our kitchen windowsill, our noses pressed against the scent till they were ripe enough. Now I stand in my kitchen counter, paring the skin from its flesh. Its fresh tears stream in my hands. I have forgotten pears ripen at room temperature in their cultural climate. I remember the instructions that guarantee a pear's ripeness. Simply press its neck. Thank you. So the next poem is from a photograph in 1935 about my great-grandfather, who I've never met, but just looking at his face in the photograph, I had a conversation with him. And so this poem is entitled Conversation with My Great-Grandfather. Perhaps you own only this fedora, black brimmed to halo your head below, a nod angled up from jawlines, high as distant mountains. I see you are unaware of me, probing a past I want to know. Your game face, is it not shocked by the eye of Kodak's close-up? Some might blink in a camera's burst, but you exude a shine from your surface, shaded by a hat that does not pose an opinion about being in this photo. I am told you are an unread book. Here, you are refined and sepia brown, wearing a white open collar, squinting from the lapel of your dark suit. Is it unfashionable to smile? Your clean shave leaves a thin stash. Full lips hum a silent note, only you know the song. The subtlety of your corners curl As if you want to say hello, tip your hat, properly introduce yourself. Thank you. This poem is about my father, although it does not have an epigraph, but the title is The River. I've seen souls rise and fall like waves, ready for passage of drifting song. I see canulas traveling my father's face like the Nile swimming upward, fighting gravity against breathing and shedding of his Sunday suit. He will leave behind a gaunt cocoon, echoing deferred reverie still thirsty. We are children who follow the stars. I am a child who wonders why he and I never climbed those mountains. I am witness to the conspicuous sharp cheekbone following the thin shadow of a man, his ashen hair curled tight as Ali's fist, determined to win the battle. But lost time is dead weight, and it spreads its will the way thorns push through unsown terrain. I tell my father I love him, and he turns his head toward the sound of my voice. I pull a blanket over his unmasked shoulders, and a sterile coolness envelops the room. There is no escaping the hoarse voice chased by jolting discomfort. His eyes are engaged far beyond me, far beyond our distance. It is that gulf neither of us found time to swim. His eyes dip like two buoys in unexplored rivers. Thank you. Okay, so this next poem, another poem about my mom. It's called Narcolepsy. She is like a little red car racing toward disruption, a detour of caution, blinking eyes anywhere. Still, she searches for a perfect roundabout, a remedy for sweet relief, pushes past endless roadblocks, retreats in alleys that steer her absent from us. She will deter the thief who rambles her words, who lowers her eyelids, tucks her into slumber. He will steal her flow, but not her faith, as she fights the pull of evening shade, brushing the sleep from her eyes. She resides in unknown ideologies, dreams of sheep, too many to count. Thank you. This poem is entitled Fat Meat is Greasy. The air in our home spat like fat meat in a cast iron skillet. It was as hot as the R&B hit, Let's Stay Together. Because love is supposed to taste better at home. Cooking is what my mother did. Money don't grow on trees, she said. The kitchen is where a family eats. It is where hard conversations remain, where uneaten leftovers are served the next day for breakfast. I remember a homemade hamburger, sat waiting between slices of Wonder Bread. My mother declared the dinner bell had already struck as my father's fire seasoned the kitchen with piss on it, greasing his lips. The front door slammed behind him. My mother's clenched fist stirred across our secondhand table to tenderize his vacancy. His sandwich oozed ketchup, cheese, and tomato like tears. My young brother and I giggled at the gesture of something we did not understand. The aroma of questions lingered in the air. And I will finish with this last one about my grandmother. My grandmother died in 2016 at the ripe age of 100. And she had a lot of health problems and things like that, a stroke and breast cancer, but she didn't die from those things. So this is about her. It's called Epiphany. I remember your aha moment when an uninvited guest took up residence in your home and left a calling card. Inside your left breast was an aggressive plot, a landmine fastened to your life, determined to be buried with your body. But you, are a contour map of calculated curves, walking with faith across deep-rooted rivers, looking for turned-up miracles. The power of frequency is evident as you trust the surgeon, his instrument of choice break into your beautiful skin. He dismantles the bomb ticking like a clock as you, a warrior, exploring your own map carved into your chest like new memories. You wear a full-fitted dress because a flattened spirit never suited you, nor the carriage of imperfect cleavage. When Mom said Hugh Hefner was hiring, cottontails bounced in your mood and you laughed in the face of 80, knowing you'd never posed for Playboy, though the thought gave you pause. Your shine kept your pages turning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sandra. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
We've been listening to Sandra Rivers-Gill reading from her debut chapbook, As We Cover Ourselves with Light. So thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you for having me.
Now we're moving into our open mic portion of the evening with readers from Sheila-Na-Gig Online's Fall 2023 issue. And we're going to start with Michael Dwayne Smith. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you, Haley. And Sandra, thank you for those extraordinary poems. I remembered Anju from One Art Poetry Journal, just an amazing poem. And I'm just going to do a quick shout out to my poetry support team, Jennifer Glover, friend of mine for more than 30 years, and fellow poets, Michael Manassian and Linda Goyne. So round of applause for my poetry support team. There you go. All right, my first poem tonight is from Sheila-Na-Gig, and it's called A Kind of Hum. That time when I took a train south through a western night sky, all night it seemed, crossing coastal bridges, gliding gulls in the window, stars phosphorescent, dropped like rhinestones in the backlit surf, tracks clacking beneath cloudlets of cigarette smoke, trapped in my dim compartment, with strangers disinterested and silent, except a woman humming, and it was familiar, salient, the tune of her voice, but still today I can't place it, though I can hear as clear as my mother saying, "Honey, everyone wants to be something to write home about." Though I never did, and then Mom was gone, just like the lovely girl I was riding that train to get to, longing to be even a subplot in her story. But youth is a pair of scissors, thinking it can rearrange anything in any way, snip out obstacle or inconvenience, the holes letting your shadows in. And what if I said you were made of all the things you don't understand, clever caged bird? What if all the duct tape, cracked windows, bitten lips, abandoned puppies, boarded shops, dirty snow, dying trees, spent winds, and uneaten midnight diner cherry pies on the long road back to the home you can't ever get to? What if these wet red brake lights in the dark are a kind of hum you're supposed to know? Yet, here you are, fluttering in the rattling train car of a memory, destined to extinction, no history or high mass, dulcet loneliness. Okay, and the second one I'm going to do for you, this just came out in Imposter Poetry Journal, and it's entitled A Poem Ending with a Line from Luc Besson's Lucy. Dad treasured Anne Murray's Snowbird, liked to wore that record out, until during a case of Coors with a neighbor, he heard the double whammy. He'd been listening to a Canadian lesbian. He broke what he loved and threw it out. I wear jeans and a sports coat to the service, no tie. Pay the choir to sing Snowbird. My sister paints her nails during my eulogy. After, back at the house, store-bought potato salad, deli platter, Neighbors and relatives chatter on anything but Dad, who hated hard, though me and Sis do not. Us both excommunicated for relations with gays and not whites, despite his Mexican buddy and drunk holiday habit of dancing around singing in one of Mom's dresses as a joke. Always kept a dog to kick, yell at, lock outside at night, and muttered dark evangelical passages, trapped between the fool's gold of heaven and his seething lust. Sis thinks she had him figured. I did too for a time, us both kicked and locked out of home. But I've thought more about it since, parked by the river, under the cottonwood at night. Truth is, we don't know any more than a dog who watches the moon. Thank you very much.
Those were beautiful, Michael. And Sandra, I loved your reading. Bonnie Proudfoot is at the airport on her way to visit her grandchildren, and she just messaged me saying she hoped you'd read the Pears poem, and what beautiful work you have. So I just wanted to pass that on. She's so sorry she can't be here. So I didn't know, Haley, I asked above, but you might have missed it. Is it okay if I read the one that's in the upcoming issue, or? Yeah, okay. So the one that is in the upcoming Sheila-Na-Gig issue is called The Bends, and it was actually generated from the Writers Table group, and which has been an amazing thing. So I love all my Ohio people. It's been I've been really blessed. But anyway, it's called The Bends. On that on that last dive, the light came through the kelp forest like beams through the highest church windows. It might have been La Sagrada Familia, Notre Dame, the Duomo, but here I was off Catalina, finding God in the sea, the Garibaldi flashing like enormous darting pennies, sands lifted by soft winds of gentle waves, a glittering mist in the sky of ocean. If I swam down too far, rose too fast, the bubbles in my lungs would outpace me. Inflated gas could erase me. Exploded like an overblown pufferfish. Such is the power of the depths, bodies bursting under pressure. My son was just letting in the cat. I have a lot of cat traffic in my room. Anyway, the other one I wanted to read was in just published in Minion magazine, and I wrote it in response to my friend. My friend lost a close friend to esophageal cancer, but I've gone through a lot with my father and my stepmother and various other relatives, and so I wrote an ode to swallowing. When even a spoonful is too much, you feed on a line of sugar water, heart thrumming like a hummingbird. When your throat narrows along with the road ahead, and fear of aspiration fills you with dread, when the lump in your throat becomes an unspoken apology in mine, when the line is drawn between ritual and survival, and a meal is made of air, when the tart smoothness of a teaspoonful of yogurt distills a perfect sweetness, from our first gulp of air at birth to the first solid that we consume, we take for granted the breath, nourishment, swallow the fear of choking. In time, we begin our vigil, watch our elders, then become our elders, each bite a promise and a threat, the irony cruel upon our tongues. If we're lucky, return to gruel, swallow what we must. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I guess I'm supposed to just jump in, right? I'm Ellen. Everybody's readings have been so beautiful. So, thank you, Sandra and Betsy and Michael. And this is a great opportunity to be in community. So thank you to Haley and Barbara for having us. So I'm going to read two poems, and the first poem is from the fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, and Some of you might notice the name of the trail in the poem. It's in Red River Gorge. So it's called River of Clouds. I snap a panoramic on chimney top rock, turbulent air, and my hair wet with sweat, my skin wearing Kentucky weather like it had been steam ironed on this morning. The sun shone as we rose and left our cabin on our first trip alone since our sons moved from home. We emerged from the trail as the rain came, like soft kisses. At 1,000 feet up, the trees obscure the red river that cuts through the sandstone gorge below. Cool drops meet the unseen water. Fog rises in thick ribbons where the river lives. This river of clouds shows what lies hidden from view. Look, I capture a figure from behind, his gray hooded poncho leaning against the cliff edge rail. I can see my love. Look, from here I can see him and the river rising. Thank you. So this next poem is called Considered the Seahorse, and this just came out in the fall issue of Still the Journal. So just since you can't see it, you're only hearing it, there's kind of a little weaving going on in here between this encounter I had diving, Betsy, not getting the bends, but diving, with a seahorse, and also kind of ties in with the hippocampus, a center in the brain, and the etymology of that comes out to sea monster, hippocampus, because it's shaped like a seahorse. So that's the connection. So it's called Consider the Seahorse. Tail tethered to seaweed, anchored on the harbor floor. Consider this fish alone, missing its other more, the link in a pair. Consider a horse tremoring in the field, how your friend once said you were like this too, barely held, quavering in waves. Consider the sea monster, diminutive yet holding fast, open eyes surveying you, a foal entwined in grass. Ponder the hippocampus embedded deep within the brain, how it swims in the temporal lobe. Consider the construct of time, how it is memory defined, even as it moves forward into fathoms unknown. Consider the synapse between senses and past, how the smell of salt takes you to a familiar beach somewhere. The hippocampus reigns this in our mind. Ponder the delicate seahorse, spent when seas get rough. Its tiny middle fin gives out, and they're swept up. Consider damage to the seahorse, the limbic border between two worlds. As my hand fans flat against the sand, I study the currents unfurl. Thank you.
My name's Robert Dean. I'm in Augusta, Kansas. And it's a privilege to be here celebrating Sandra's new book. I've always loved your stuff, Sandra. It's great you got this book coming out or already out. And it's great to be among the open readers here. I'm going to meet the requirement of reading a poem from the fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig to start with. I changed glasses. Been having a vision problem in my left eye, and it's finally got a diagnosis, but it's kind of difficult to read stuff. This is called Bethesda. We are at the podiatry clinic, and we are old and lame and waiting for Jesus in a white coat to lay on hands and make us walk, shed our canes, support hose, trim our toenails, wash our feet, set us on the path to extremity unction. We wonder what we have done to deserve this, to lie at the sheep gate, watch others go down to the pool before us, to shamble so pitifully the face of the earth. We wonder when we became so old, so lame, so blood-cursed, when time came up and bit us in the ass, booted us from stroller to walker. How long before we need the wheeled chair, before our legs are fodder for the slaughterhouse, before we rot with bed sores and stink like the near dead? And the nurse calls our names and we shuffle, scuffle, motor, and contort our way to the pool, shocked at how much like a youthful us God is. Shocked us at the quick nip of the clippers, the certainty of inserts, injections. Walk out the gate, not healed, not taking up our bed. Tears of grace kissing each step. And the second one is also from Sheila-Na-Gig. It's from what I would label the Christmas issue last year, December of last year. It's called I Wish I May, I Wish I Might. I flip a coin. It sticks in the overhead, one star burning. I flip more, empty my pockets, 7 stars, but none flicker. Did I find them along the way, or did you give them to me, or does it matter? What shall I use for the moon? I toss up a memory from a night when I was 8. We sat on the steps and sang When You Wish Upon a Star. And Jiminy Cricket chirped in from under the porch, and one of us grew up and the other one didn't, though which was which, I'm not so sure. Another coin, it wasn't there before. I toss it, not so high this time. Call heads, it lands tails in my palm. Stars blink, moon sheds a tear. Do you remember me? Thank you.
Hello, excuse me. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Haley, for letting me read. Thank you, Sandra, for your beautiful reading. This is the piece that I had in the fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, and I just want to also say thank you because this was the first acceptance I had gotten since I started sending my work out earlier in 2023, so it's extra special. It's called Shatner and Hatfield on the Motherhood. It was like I went to space inside a little spacesuit with noise, fire, and fury, holding for dear life. The disappearing Earth took up my whole mind. They say, don't worry about anything, but it's as if I just stepped off a cliff. Everything's going to be fine, they say, while the walls of the nursery were painted in Vanta black, and I just couldn't get the Hindenburg out of my head. Inexplicably, between fragility and vicious coldness, my face melting, sinuses not draining, and only one of my eyes working. Crying only works on Earth. Tears don't fall in space. I look down and there's Blue, a pouring glory in her soft eyes, a kaleidoscope roaring by silently. Standing on 250 miles of emptiness, everything I had thought was wrong. So I let my eyes adjust to the darkness. I saw the hole our spaceship had punched through the blue-tinged layer, and there was light under my feet and ribbons and curtains, a fantastic laser light show for miles. Death and beauty settling into iridescence, time dilating. She is silently answering the mystery of the universe, its yawning endlessness and questions of exploration, hypotheses of stars exploding, their light traveling to us years later. It took 2 times around the beige desert, white clouds and blue sky, and I turned back toward the light of her. It was life, tethering me, glowing with the light of another dawn. And the other one I will read is forthcoming in Thimble Literary Magazine's next issue. It's called Power Thoughts, and there's an epigraph. The way to control your life is to control your choice of words and thoughts. Louise Hay, you can heal your life. Louise says it's only a thought, and a thought can be changed. I think about giraffe babies without spots, birth in captivity, how I don't know what I'd change them to. Louise says, my happy thoughts help create my healthy body. I wonder why dental floss has an expiration date. Visualize microorganisms breaching my Cupid's bow. Whatever I need to know is revealed to me at exactly the right time. But I am Googling these same words in every possible syntax: ductal, carcinoma, lymph, metastasis. Every thought I think is creating my future, but the singular thought mastectomy sticks even in my interdental spaces, will not yield. Wellness is the natural state of my body. She says I am in perfect health. I am pain-free and totally in sync with life. I am beautiful and everybody loves me. It is safe to look within. Louise says I need to let go of the thoughts that led me to dis-ease. Louise says her anger was a cancer and rape was at the virulent core. She released so love could flow through her body, vanquish all squamous cells from her cervix. She says my actual ill is not saying no enough, allowing resentment and fear to ferment in me, forgetting that I do not fix problems. I fix my thinking, then problems fix themselves. The past is over. My life gets better all the time. Thank you.
I was so paranoid. I think it was at this last reading for Sheila-Na-Gig that I jumped the line. So Haley, did I do okay? I don't think I did it again. Okay. Thank you, Haley, for organizing these readings. I really love them. And thank you, Sandra, for your reading. It was just beautiful. And everyone, it's been a real pleasure to listen and to not cut in line too in front of you. This first poem was the poem in the fall issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. And like Sandra, I write a lot about family, and this one's about my mother. The Chinese balloon incident. My mother tells me the moon is in danger of being shot down, erased from the sky. I saw it on the news, she says, pointing a finger toward me, and then up to the night above. She says the Chinese sent us the moon, but we were too stupid to say yes. Now there is nothing aglow, the stars dissolved by circus light, the moon shot with a clown's arrow. I agree. Tell her it will be all right. The moon will rise again as it always does, shining its bright eye. For a moment, I expect her to laugh. Find the humor in the moon, the clown, the arrow, the Chinese sending the moon, maybe by parcel post. But in her gaze, a horror of the darkness, the hole around her thoughts, the promise of an orbit broken. Now her mind is a moon riddled with holes, falling through the atmosphere, a slow, dull flame on a shallow wick. You know, and I got really nervous. I read the other day that the moon is slowly moving away from the earth, like by an inch or something a year. And I'm like, okay, great. You know, we'll see what happens next. And this poem I'm going to read, this poem has had some good news this week, but I can't even tell you or I'll get in trouble. But so I'm kind of excited to let it have its airing in the world. It's called Let's End This Now. Imagine driving from Berkeley to Susanville. Me, giddy, my date was taking me anywhere. The night dark, only the truck headlights beaming onto flickering tree trunks. Snow piled high on the banks, thick flakes falling, whisked away by the wipers, 1, 2, 1, 2, as we clattered toward the ancient family cabin, a golem full of secrets, and the silent lake behind it, a dead eye. Imagine the sputtering boat ride the next day, the water almost frozen, the revving and dying engine reverberating over the water. My date could have been a serial killer, he racked with oddities and fear, but the real culprit was probably behind the spindly pines, waiting for us to dock, or hiding in the bathroom with a knife, eager to slash us to ribbons, which would have been a kindness, considering how the next months would go. See me clinging and sad, and he afraid and pathological. Note all the ensuing therapy, this a desperate rebound after a long marriage. But instead of that story, let's end this now. The killer holding his breath, the plan right on schedule as we open the cabin door. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. And Sandra, I admire your work so much. And so I chose the two poems that maybe would kind of support the theme that you have going in your book. So I'm gonna, with Haley's permission, I'd like to start with Forgiveness, which she published about a year ago. It's a short one. Sandra, I think you've heard it before. We've read together before, but Forgiveness. He smoked Pall Malls with abandon. A bottle of Jim Beam cinched between his thighs. Dean Martin on the radio, singing to the five of us little kids in the back seat. So what? So he bought us all fast food, crumpled the empty bags and tossed them out the window like what he'd rather forget, then told us to toss ours too. And we all lined up on our knees, looked out the wide expanse of rearview window, watched wads of garbage flit like orchids. Sometimes we fought like dogs, and he paid us to count yellow school buses in July to shut us up. We were young. He was too, in a reckless age. And eventually those empty bags, all those cigarette butts that tumbled from the ashtray along the outside of his green Fleetwood, Jim Beam turned upside down, smashed on the pavement and sparkling like fairy dust, were miles and miles behind us. And then the second poem, thanks, is another, it's a family, it's memory-based, and it's called Invocation, and it was just taken by Still. We didn't know what we prayed for at night, but it was important to our mother. Oh, shoot, is this the one? Oh, well, I'm reading it now. I was going to read the one that I started at Lit Youngstown. I'm going to start over. I'm really sorry. Invocation. We didn't know what we prayed for at night, but it was important to our mother, her special intention, a secret, like the chocolate she kept in a cupboard she thought we couldn't reach. But this was neither chocolate nor pleasure, nor anywhere near our grasp. It wasn't a thing we could pull up a chair to or find as we climbed toward the dark corner cabinet past all the sealed Clark bars, the Kit Kats and Mars bars, until we discovered, and we always discovered, the open Snickers, the odd Hershey square we broke off, nibbled, or hid in our pockets before she entered the room. We hid all kinds of food, just like she hid things. Once I sneaked down to the basement, dug into the deep freeze for an ice cream sandwich I had veiled behind frozen peas and pork chops, when I fingered a ponderous wad of paper towel that bore a gold stone the size of my fist. Real gold. Treasure she held in reserve in case prayers didn't work. Yes, we had control issues, trust issues, all of us, which we learned in Al-Anon was a gift from our Father long before those prayers our mother channeled through us. On summer nights, windows flung open, our blind appeals floated like our Father's cigarette smoke on nothing more than faith. Thanks. And that actually was the poem that got started in Youngstown. And so some of you were in Bonnie Proudfoot's presentation. And like I am normally in my jammies. Well, I actually am in my jammies right now with a sweatshirt on, and I'm so tired. So thank you for hanging with me. And Sandra, thank you again for your lovely book.
Many thanks again to Sandra Rivers-Gill for reading from your amazing chapbook and our open mic readers. And thank you for all of our Sheila-Na-Gig community supporters who've come out tonight as well. If you're looking at us on YouTube, you can find us at SheilaNagigblog.com. Thank you, everybody.